Let us pray. The prayer is used at Westminster since 1659. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our considerations. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon.
Speaker, I'd like to give notice that at the end of question period under Standing Order number 40, I will be presenting a motion to the Assembly to pay tribute to recognize the 75th anniversary of the election of Kenny and Roberta McAdams to the Alberta Legislature.
Introduction of bills.
Calgary Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill 31, the Employment Pensions Plan Amendment Act 1992. Mr. Speaker, this bill provides for additional life retirement income options and greater flexibility for holders of locked-in registered retirement savings plans and for members of private sector pension plans. Bill 31 also includes necessary changes to ensure pension plan sponsors can amend their plans to comply with the January 1st, 1992 changes to the Income Tax Act of Canada. In addition, this bill contains a number of housekeeping changes which meet industry needs and clarify the legislation. It is my pleasure to introduce Bill 31, the Employment Pension Plans Amendment Act 1992, for first reading.
The honourable member for Calgary Foothills has moved first reading to Bill 31, Employment Pension Plans Amendment Act 1992. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 31, Employment Pension Plans Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honourable Member Mrs. Black, is now read a first time.
Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 227, this bill being the Telemarketing Act. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to outline the times during which telecommunications calls can be made, telemarketing calls can be made. It provides for no further calls to that same phone number should the person request it. It also talks about disconnect guidelines and also talks about the nature of contracts that will be entered into as a result of telemarketing solicitations.
The honourable member for Calgary Northwest has moved first reading to Bill 227, Telemarketing Act. Those members in favour of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 227, Telemarketing Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Brusiker, is now read a first time.
Deputy Government House Leader.
Speaker, I move that Bill 31, the Employment Pension Plans Amendment Act 1992, be placed on the order paper under Government Bills and Orders.
Who, having heard the motion, those in favour, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Member for Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill 325, the Bikeway and Pedestrian Development. This bill will add to the mandate of the Department of Transportation and Highways to include the movement of pedestrians and human-powered vehicles. It also establishes that 5% of the available funds for construction improvement of roads and bridges be allocated to pedestrian and bikeway development.
The honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place has moved first reading to Bill 325, the Bikeway and Pedestrian Development Act. Those members in favour of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 325, the Bikeway and Pedestrian Development Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. McInnes, is now read a first time.
Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 319, the Uniform Building Standards Amendment Act of 1992. This bill establishes the Task Force on Energy Efficiency to propose changes in the Alberta Building Code and other measures to improve the energy efficiency of buildings.
The honourable member for Edmonton Meadowlark has moved first reading of Bill 319, Uniform Building Standards Amendment Act 1992. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 319, Uniform Building Standards Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the honourable member Mr. Mitchell, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Tourism, Recreation and Parks.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table with the Assembly today the response to written question number 366.
Thank you. Minister responsible for seniors.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I wish to file response to motion for return number 328.
Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as I indicated on Friday, I'm filing with the Assembly the 4 copies of the status report of the multilateral meetings on the Constitution, and copies will be made available to all members of the Assembly.
Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased today to table the annual report for 1990-91 for the following: the Private Colleges Accreditation Board, Grant MacEwan Community College. In addition, Mr. Speaker, I wish to table the annual reports for 1990-91 for the University of Alberta, University of Lethbridge, Mount Royal College, and for 1990-92, Grant MacEwan Community College.
8 to go. Red Deer North, followed by Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table a report from the Premier's Council in support of Alberta families entitled Albertan Speaking Families. It reflects a significant process of over 3,000 Albertans meeting across this province using 8 themes from the Lieutenant Governor's Conference on the Family to deliver a report to the government advising on means and ways to strengthen Alberta families.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table documents outlining critical information concerning the relationship between the Government of Alberta and Gainers Incorporated over that critical period of 1985 through 1987.
Introduction of special guests.
Solicitor General.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and to the members of the Legislative Assembly on behalf of the member for Wainwright, 19 students from Blessed Sacrament School in Wainwright. They are accompanied by their teacher, Miss Sheila Cote, and parents, Mrs. Joanne Roberts and Miss Carla Roble. And I would ask that they stand. They're in the members' gallery, and I'd like them to receive the warm welcome of this House.
Member for St. Paul.
Speaker, I would like to introduce to you and members of the Assembly 12 students from Tullabee Lake School in the St. Paul constituency. They are accompanied by teacher Al Gales and parent Ken Larson. They are sitting in the members' gallery. I would like them now to rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of this Assembly.
So if I'm my executive assistant.
Question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to file with this Assembly a letter of intent from Novotel to 2 U.S. cell phone companies, each promising up to $2 million for each license the company obtains from the U.S. government, Mr. Speaker.
No.
Now, Mr. Speaker, this is a standard letter that Novotel sent to several U.S. companies offering them a $2 million loan for construction operating costs so they could seek cell phone licenses, Mr. Speaker. And if that wasn't enough, Mr. Speaker, if they needed more, they say, come on back and ask for more. We'll probably get it, Mr. Speaker.
What a deal.
You know, the sugar daddy again, Mr. Speaker.
I'll say.
But it appears, Mr. Speaker, that Novotel was in the business of issuing blank checks, systems financing, Mr. Speaker, and it's no wonder they got into such trouble. My question to the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker, is simply this. Since it was a policy matter and the government must have been aware of this, Mr. Speaker, and certainly the Treasurer should have been aware of it, why didn't the government put a stop to this issuing of blank checks to U.S. companies, a totally inappropriate use of taxpayers' money?
Mr. Speaker, it was hardly a question of issuing blank checks. The member now has asked this question repeatedly over the course of the last 4 or 5 days. The Minister responsible, Minister for Technology, Research and Telecommunications, has, I think, provided an exhaustive explanation as to what happened. He talked about the terms of the financing. He's provided a fairly comprehensive answer, Mr. Speaker, and still further has indicated quite clearly this would be in the range of questions which the Auditor General will report upon when he provides a report to the Legislative Assembly as to a significant set of problems which were faced by Novotel over the course of the period 1984 through to, I guess, 1 month ago. So, Mr. Speaker, this is an old question. It's been asked before. It's a similar theme that we've dealt with. And I know that the member is looking for ways to keep this issue in the front burners, but really he's not uncovered anything that's new in terms of the issue itself.
It's not new when you send out a letter that the government should have been aware of, apply for money, no collateral, no nothing. That's not news, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Treasurer wasn't aware of it, then he wasn't doing his job, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. This is the biggest bamboozle in the history of Alberta, Mr. Speaker. It says, the letter says clearly, if the Treasurer will read it, if he's not aware of it, the loans were made solely on the basis of information supplied by the company, Mr. Speaker. It says nothing about matching monies guaranteed by other financial institutions. It doesn't even say anything about collateral, Mr. Speaker. No self-respecting financial institution would ever do this, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Treasurer, who must have been aware of this, is simply this. How could the Treasurer justify millions and millions of taxpayers' dollars being squandered in this way without even adequate security, Mr. Speaker?
Good point.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member is making some assumptions about what type of security was taken, the terms of the deal itself, Mr. Speaker, and it's obvious that the member doesn't understand the way in which these transactions were put in place. And I can say, Mr. Speaker, that where there's also this miscommunication that is common of the opposition parties to simply put the red herring across the trail of facts, is that the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications has also confirmed that in his view and in the government's view, we have taken and provided for losses for these types of loans. And those losses are reflected in the statement made a month ago by the Minister, and I don't expect that any additional losses will be forthcoming for the taxpayers of Alberta.
This Treasurer can never predict anything. He should take his buddy from the technology and the Premier and walk out of the House, and maybe we'd have a better chance getting some of his money back, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
And for him to come back, Mr. Speaker, and say we don't understand business. This way business operates, you know, no collateral, no security, Mr. Speaker. Take what you want. Mr. Speaker, one of the things they do say there very quickly, Mr. Speaker, is they say, though, that the money is available from committed sources. Quote, Mr. Speaker, from committed sources. We know who that is, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Treasurer is simply this. It's true, isn't it? Those committed sources were the taxpayers of Alberta. That's what this is all about, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, again, the member has not asked a new question. This is the same misstatement that we saw in the first part of the question that we saw through the last part of last week. There's nothing new here. Let me just summarize again, Mr. Speaker, so that everyone understands clearly what's happening here. We have now seen that the Auditor General has been put in place by a letter by the Premier to the Auditor General, which sets out a very clear set of guidelines. That letter has been tabled in the Legislative Assembly. All members have an opportunity to review it. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we've asked for the full cooperation of all the participants, including, but not exhaustively including, certainly the management of AGT and others, so that their full cooperation has now been confirmed. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the auditor is now setting about his work. And we think, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure the people of Alberta would agree, that this is not an easy topic for us to deal with. It's difficult in terms of the losses, clearly, but we're trying to get the most fullest possible explanation as to what happened. And the best way to have that done is to have the Auditor General carry out his work. The Auditor General is a servant of this Assembly. He's independent in his view. He has access to the information, and he will write an unbiased report which will provide for us the explanation as to what happened. In the meantime, these kinds of questions simply detract from the fundamental question, and we think, Mr. Speaker, that the people of Alberta deserve an explanation, and that's what the Auditor General will do.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Treasurer, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to designate the second question to the member from Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the weekend we heard of the incarceration of a young boy from Fort McMurray for truancy. Mr. Speaker, this is not a criminal issue, it's an issue of school attendance. To the Minister of Education, considering the high costs of court proceedings, transportation to Edmonton, incarceration at the Young Offender Centre, can the Minister now the benefits of incarceration for truancy to the student involved and to other children in his school, considering that he was not a threat to himself or anyone else?
Mr. Speaker, this is not just a matter of attendance at school. This is not just a matter of a young man who failed to miss a few days in school. It is a matter of complying with the court's direction and decision. And what the judge made a decision on was A, that this child was truant from school, but of an even more serious offense, this young man was found to be in contempt of court. And I know that the gentleman or the member across the way would not condone any person, young or old, in breaking the law. And the judge found him in contempt of court and placed him in the Young Offender Center. This was known to the child before the decision was made. He knew what the consequences of his action would be, and it was clearly spelled out for him before the child was sent to the Young Offender Center, and the judge was merely complying with the law and sending a very serious message that no one should be in contempt of a court in this province.
Mr. Speaker, I find it very difficult to hear that a boy who's obviously so troubled that he would go through those procedures is being punished, as opposed to finding out what the real problem is. Be that as it may, Mr. Speaker, now that the boy has been released until the results of the appeal hearing, and that he is a troubled boy, can the minister guarantee that he will not be further traumatized and that he will receive proper care and help so that he can continue the education he deserves?
Well, Mr. Speaker, all effort was made by this boy's family, by the school authorities, and by several others in the Fort McMurray community to provide him with basically a custom-made, custom-built education program. That's the very purpose of the attendance board process, Mr. Speaker. And the law was passed in this legislature unanimously by both sides of this House, such that Section 110, which spells out the attendance board process, was voted on in favor by the government, was voted on in favor by the Liberals and by the New Democratic Party, Mr. Speaker. And all members of this House knew that in enacting that legislation, that this kind of action could be contemplated. But, Mr. Speaker, what it does is send a very serious message to all Albertans that attending school is one of the most important things that a person can do. And the court, backed up by this legislature reflecting Alberta opinion, says there really isn't anything more important than a young person attending school.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would like to point out to the minister, incarceration is not mentioned in that section. Also, the parents are the ones, or guardians, are responsible for getting them into school. But since the minister is lost, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to go to the Attorney General. Given that as of the boy's 16th birthday this August, the School Act permits him not to attend school without even parental consent. He is off the hook.
What useful purpose will be served to expend public funds by having this appeal heard in September?
Mr. Speaker, the incarceration was not pursuant to the School Act. The incarceration was pursuant to contempt of a court, and a judge has the inherent discretion and responsibility on hearing a case to dispose of it as he may. And in this instance, that was done. Of course, there's also a process that allows appeal if a person does not agree on the basis of law in a particular finding. And that's what's happening in this instance. Because somebody happens to reach an age after a matter has been heard does not necessarily mean that it's vacated. It may. I couldn't address that issue right now. That's in the power and control of the court at this time. I think the Minister of Education has made it very, very clear the utmost interest in this case is the interest of that child to ensure that he's cared for.
Edmonton Meadowlark on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Documents which I tabled earlier today, Mr. Speaker, include financial statements indicating that Gaynors lost $22 million over the 2 years just before this government gave them a $67 million loan and loan guarantee package. My question is to the Premier. What criteria were used to determine that this $67 million loan package should be given to a company that had just lost $22 million over the preceding 2 years?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me say with respect to those issues which circulate around the Gaynors' questions, I think I've advised the Assembly, and I'll advise the member from Edmonton Meadowlark again, that obviously there are a series of litigation now taking place between the government, Gaynors against the former shareholder, Mr. Pocklington. And that litigation, Mr. Speaker, is now scheduled for trial. And there has been full hearings with respect to the hearings for discovery on many of those actions. I give this warning, Mr. Speaker, because there is clear precedent here in our Legislative Assembly, which we track back to the House of Parliament in England, which clearly indicates that in those cases where, in fact, there is litigation underway, that in fact we would prejudice ourselves if in fact we provided information or confirmed or denied what in fact has been tabled. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that I've had a chance to look at the tabling by the member, and I'll simply confirm what we have said before, that as the court process unfolds, there's going to be a series of tablings taking place. This information is simply an update of the financial statements going back to 1987. I don't know how the member reconciles the numbers. My quick reading of it shows, in fact, in 1985 the company made a profit, but I don't want to get into those details. And secondly, the tablings include term sheets, which are commonly exchanged between borrowers and lenders, setting out a rough framework which might emerge into a contract at some point. But there's not much more in these particular tablings, and I know the member from Meadowlark will try to make something of it. Let me conclude here, Mr. Speaker, by saying that this is the normal process. We have said before that there'll be a variety of pieces of information which will be tabled, which will rise out of the court process. We expect that. I've advised members of this Assembly that it will happen, and this is just another stage in what we predicted to be an unfolding of this process, where in fact the government is suing Mr. Pocklington for millions of dollars as a result of default on the Gaynors transaction.
Mr. Speaker, the Treasurer is concerned that he might prejudice himself if he answered these questions. Albertans are convinced that he would prejudice himself if he answered these questions. We now have a summary of the famous Premier's agreements offering Gaynors a $50 million 4-year interest-free loan, which represents a $21 million gift to Mr. Pocklington. Why will the Premier not admit that he personally proposed this arrangement as part of the deal to get Mr. Pocklington to settle the Gaynors strike?
Mr. Speaker, that's absolute false.
Maybe the Premier should check with the documents of fact that have been established in the court case. The Lloyd's Bank, Mr. Speaker, this bank was on the hook for loans to gainers, had a management committee which watched everything that Mr. Pocklington did. Why did the government itself not set up a management committee to watch everything that Pocklington did when this government put taxpayers at risk to Mr. Pocklington by $67 million?
Again, Mr. Speaker, the member is challenging the sub judice convention clearly, and as well known, Mr. Speaker, we would not be able to answer questions surrounding the gainers issues as a result of that clear direction to us from Beauchesne and other legislative authorities.
Well, thank you, honourable member, but quit testing the chair is the problem, and quit testing the matter of the legislature when it comes to Beauchesne 410, subsection 15. Because the onus of responsibility is on both the person asking the question as well as those responding. And the convention is not a convention, it is an order by standing order in this House. But when a matter is sub judice, it should not even be raised. Calgary Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, Mr. Speaker, the parents in Hawkwood community in northwest Calgary voted 56% in favor of year-round schooling. The Calgary School Board says that that is not sufficient support to proceed with the project. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Education. Would he consider giving a directive to the Calgary Board to proceed with the test project?
Mr. Speaker, I think given the sometimes glacier-like pace that we as Canadians or North Americans find our way in making changes in education, the 56% approval by Hawkwood residents last week is a significant step. And I believe that there's a sufficient interest in the community that combined with the school board's efforts, and we are there as a department and as a government to help them, to address the other questions, the what-if questions, or the what-about type questions. And there are probably about 2 or 3 or 4 of them that need to be addressed. That provides the makings for the Calgary Public School Board to give a go-ahead to the Hawkwood year-round school project. And we stand ready to help them, and I hope that they'll be able to see their way to giving a green light to this decision.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is more than just an educational matter. It's also a problem of utilization of space. At present, we are busing children all over the city to accommodate them in classrooms. Could the minister please explain why the Calgary Public Board is building schools that do not meet the space requirements within the communities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member is absolutely right. It is more than just an education issue. It becomes a space issue too. But Mr. Speaker, that is the second reason why school boards should to experiment, to pilot with this kind of an idea. The first and primary reason must be that it must be good for children's education. But Mr. Speaker, why do school boards why does the province only approve school projects that meet perhaps not the entire need, not the immediate need? Well, for one thing, Mr. Speaker, we don't grant approval to projects that we aren't requested to grant approval to, and the Calgary Public Board has not asked for a larger school. But part of the reason behind that, Mr. Speaker, is that just as a department store doesn't stock its shelves all year round for the Christmas rush, there is a period, there's a time, a cycle in a community's life that they need a large number of classrooms, which can be met by the core school and by relocatable portables outside. And then once that need is no longer there, then they can move those relocatables. And we try and work with school boards to ensure that the changing size or demand of that school can be accommodated by that core and by those relocatables.
Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The fact that this treasurer is asking the Assembly for a $4 billion increase in the province's borrowing limit shows that the government's finances are totally out of control.
Got that right.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that despite this provincial treasurer's claims, it is clear that Alberta will be paying for Novotel and other government fiascos this year. Will the provincial treasurer now admit to this Assembly that nearly $1 billion of this increased borrowing is to pay for the Novotel fiasco and to pay for incompetent management from this government for the Magcans, the Pocklingtons, and all the other deals that have gone bad in this province?
Mr. Speaker, since the member from Mountain View has tied his question to Bill 37, we'll be debating that bill this afternoon if our schedule holds, Mr. Speaker.
First, Bill 30. We don't know if we're getting to 37.
Oh, this government hides behind the rules, Mr. Speaker, and fails to address the issues for Albertans.
He wants your job, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the truth is that Novotel, Magcan, the Peter Pocklington deals are driving this province deeper into the red, nearly $1 billion this year. At the time of the last election, the debt ceiling for this province was $7.5 billion. The provincial treasurer wants to raise it to $17.5 billion. How does he justify the fact that since this last provincial election, it's skyrocketed by an unbelievable $10 billion? What sort of performance is that, Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, if the member wants to then reflect back on the history in Alberta since 1985-86, say, as one starting point, it would be easy to summarize for the member what it is that happened. And I think it's fair, Mr. Speaker, since the member has taken some time to paint this rather shaded view of history and talk, I think, in strong rhetoric about what has happened, that we need to have an opportunity here to put the record straight. Mr. Speaker, as of March 31st, 92, the provincial debt was about $12 billion. That fact was recorded when I tabled the budget documents, and then at the General Revenue Fund and the Capital Fund debt is about $12 billion or so. And that's approximately matched by the assets, which total about $12 billion. And so in the case of Alberta, Mr. Speaker, at the end of March 31st, 92, this province, unlike any other government in Canada, had an equal amount of assets and an equal amount of debt. What can be said clearly here, Mr. Speaker, is that no other government can back its liabilities with assets. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have to go back to 1986 to see what in fact happened. And you'll recall that in 1985, everybody forecast that in fact the price of oil would continue to rise more rapidly than most people expected. Certainly 91-82, the forecast for oil for 1995 was $100 a barrel U.S. I don't have to remind you what happened to our revenues in 1986 when the price of oil in July fell to below $10 a barrel. And it's for that reason, Mr. Speaker, that we've had to manage our way out of that severe economic shock, which is driven by external forces. And in doing so, we presented a plan, Mr. Speaker, which moved us through a 5-year, 6-year planning period. And last year, Mr. Speaker, we would have had a balanced budget had it not been for the second economic shock. And that second economic shock was driven by forces outside the province's control. And that force included the price of gas dropping at the same percentage rate as the price of oil in 1986, again, Mr. Speaker, causing our deficit to go from a balanced budget position, which is our firm position, our objective, to about $1.2 billion. As a consequence, Mr. Speaker, to maintain the same level of services and to keep taxpayers safe by not burdening them with these external changes, we've maintained the lowest possible tax rate of any province in Canada, no sales tax, and we still have used the financial strengths to be in the best financial position of any province in Canada. That's what we're...
Thank you. Westlock Sturgeon, followed by Banff Cochrane.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Solicitor General scoffed at me when I urged him to reverse his decision to divert a young sexual offender from treatment at the Woods Home in Calgary in favor of a residence in a group home. All for the sake of saving a few measly dollars, Mr. Speaker. And this from a government that's recently dropped over 5 tons of $100 bills in the Novotel disaster. A question to the Solicitor General is, now that the family court judge who originally ordered the Woods Home treatment has called the Solicitor General's arguments ludicrous, even worse than I've ever said, Mr. Speaker. Will he perform a miracle by swallowing just an ounce of his pride and get off his kid's back and let him get on with his treatment?
Good. Mr. Speaker, there never has been or never will be a denial by this government or this department or this minister that there will be treatment for this young offender who needs help in a very sensitive area of his life. Having said that, there is a responsibility in this province to the people of Alberta, to the taxpayers, and to the government that has a very hard job at running all the programs on their behalf. The issue with the courts is not that there be counseling and a directed treatment, but that they directed it specifically to a private sector operation. And if we do not have the flexibility within the Solicitor General Department or any other department in this government as it relates to some of our programs, if we do not have the flexibility to direct them to the best use of the taxpayers' dollars and the best treatment of the individual, then we are indeed at loggerheads with the system. And I would like to ask one other question of this Assembly. What is the reason? Perhaps I'm not allowed to ask the question, but I would indicate I would like to know the direction of this member's questions, whether they be based on common sense or political motivation.
How about what's best for the kid? Mr. Speaker, I think we were interested in this legislature, I hope, in what is best for the juvenile offender. I think we're interested in what's best for the offender. Now, Mr. Speaker, now also it's interesting to hear a member of the Conservative government say that the community or private enterprise does not know what to do. Mr. Speaker, the next question is, this young man's case surely is not unique. Can the Solicitor General tell this House how many other cases he knows about of a similar type?
Mr. Speaker, that question has a broad... We have 17,000 individuals on a daily count within the criminal justice system in Alberta, 3,000 young offenders, and I am not going to go through case by case the individual cases in this Assembly.
Cochrane, followed by Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the mountain pine beetle is a voracious little insect that's eating its way through the forests in Jasper National Park. These insects are presently found just west of Jasper town site near the Mount Robson area, and they're moving in an easterly direction towards the eastern slopes of Alberta. The Canadian Park Service has a very passive management strategy for dealing with these insects, which essentially equates to watching and waiting. My question, therefore, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife. What is the Minister doing to impress upon the Canadian Park Service the need for an active management, an active intervention plan to rid Jasper National Park of this pest?
Mr. Speaker, we've been aware for a number of years of the beetle infestation in that particular area, and we're very fortunate at this point that it hasn't spread. And because of the westerly winds in that area, we're watching it very closely. We've now established a joint committee between BC, Alberta, the industry, and the Park Service to not only to monitor it, but to have a look at what actions we can take.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if this infestation isn't wiped out before it reaches the eastern slopes forest in and around the Hinton area, my question to the Minister would be, what is the impact going to be on that forest area?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying it would be very significant. We have some experience with that in the province of Alberta. In 1978, in the southern part of the province, in the Blairmore area, we had an infestation that cost us about $7 million, plus the loss of the wood and in that particular area, and the aesthetics that, and the habitat that it protected in order to eradicate the pest. And Mr. Speaker, we're very concerned about it, and as the honourable member has stated, we want to make absolutely sure that the National Park Service recognizes that it is a danger and that action should be taken to eradicate it.
Captain Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in Canmore, the Natural Resources Conservation Board begins hearings on the Three Sisters project. I would like to ask a question relating to the Bow-Canmore market demand study prepared by Pete, Marwick, Stevenson, and Kellogg for Alberta Tourism in October of 1990. It says in part, growing concern for the environment will cause more people to seek vacations in areas which are environmentally clean and which provide opportunity to experience a wilderness or at least an unspoiled environment. Now, the government chose to ignore this conclusion and offered the town of Canmore a grant of $77 million if and only if it would approve a series of projects promoted by friends of the government which will adversely affect environmentally sensitive areas in wildlife, wildlife recreation, and ecosystems. I'd like to ask the Minister of Energy, in his capacity as chairman of the Economic Development Committee of Cabinet, why he talked in Calgary towards 2000 about consultation and power sharing when his government continues to throw public funds at projects whose only justification to this date is the inside track to Cabinet.
I don't get the connection, Mr. Speaker.
The people who have the connections get it.
The people who have them certainly make use of them. All right, to the Minister of the Environment then. The Natural Resources Conservation Board Act provides that interveners can receive funding if they're affected by a project so that they can make available the best possible information and arguments for the board's consideration. In view of the fact that the NRCB felt it was unable to support intervention by the town and the school board of Canmore, several Calgary-based groups concerned about Calgary's drinking water, and others, in view of the fact that he exempted CADCO and the board threw out all the interveners in the Kananaskis project, will the Minister of the Environment state whether he has decided to review the NRCB Act to see if he can make a more inclusive process?
No, Mr. Speaker. The Act is quite adequate and basically has served those applying for intervener funding quite well. I believe in the case of the Three Sisters project, there was application for some $780,000. This is money that would be paid out of the proponent's pocket. The board sought fit to award in excess of $200,000 to those groups and individuals who would be directly affected by the project. I think that the awards under the circumstances were indeed very generous, Mr. Speaker.
And Calder, followed by Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, although the medical examiner and some departmental officials are looking at the fatal injury of a small girl at an Edmonton daycare center, there is a need for an independent investigation that looks into not only the role of the daycare, but also looks into the role of family and social services, and looks at all aspects of this incident, especially in light of the serious problems within the department's daycare program, which have been expressed. To the Minister of Family and Social Services, will the Minister agree to put in place an independent investigation that would include an examination of the department and would make recommendations to the Minister, as was done with Richard Cardinal?
Mr. Speaker, I don't know how much more independent you can be than the medical examiner. I can tell you that when I was there on the Monday morning, that the Edmonton City Police had arrived on the scene not too long after I was there, Mr. Speaker. They're an independent body. They're looking at it in a very thorough and a very professional way, Mr. Speaker. I have confidence in the medical examiner, and I have confidence in the Edmonton City Police to do their jobs.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister knows full well that the current investigations going on certainly don't look into the role of the department and concerns that have been identified. Given, Mr. Speaker, for example, that some daycare licensing officers have been given the message that they are not to enforce the regulations, it is clear to me and to others that the whole system needs to be looked at. I would ask the Minister, how can parents have faith in this Minister when he refuses to do a proper investigation that looks at all aspects of this incident? Good point.
Mr. Speaker, no licensing officers have been given a message not to enforce the regulations. The regulations are there to be enforced, and they'll continue to be enforced, Mr. Speaker. As it relates, again, I don't know why we would want to cast aspersions on the Edmonton City Police. I think they have an excellent reputation for the job that they do of investigating these things. On our daycare side, Mr. Speaker, Some would argue that, in fact, our workers are overly zealous in their enforcement. Some would argue that they issue too many Section 7s. I think it's, personally, I wouldn't argue that, Mr. Speaker. I believe that their job is an important job, that they work hard to make sure that daycares in this province are as safe as we can possibly make them. And we're going to continue to do that, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, in 1983, this government created VenCap Equities as an independent, arm's-length, hands-off venture capital corporation. We now have inside information, Mr. Speaker, that the government is planning to take control of the company by forcing a majority of the membership on their board of directors. Now, given the recent Novotel fiasco, where in fact the majority of the board of directors were government representatives, my question to the Minister responsible for Economic Development and Trade is, how can the government break their 1983 promise to Albertans to leave this company as an arm's-length, hands-off private corporation?
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the honourable member for the question, but let me indicate to the honourable member that there is no fact whatsoever to the information he just presented to the Legislative Assembly. In fact, it's very misleading what he is suggesting, because we are not contemplating anything of the sort.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after the $1.1 billion losses that we've accumulated so far, after 2000 Together conference that we recently had in Calgary, will the minister commit that, in fact, the government is not going to be moving further into business, but in fact be getting out of business, which is what Albertans have been telling the minister and the government?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member is aware, the Towards 2000 process has not been completed yet. As we go through those final stages as it relates to that very valuable public input that we have received, I'm more than happy to make all members available as to what suggestions are coming forward from the Alberta public, and we look forward to dealing with that information when it is presented to us.
I would.
Mr. Speaker, my questions today are to the Minister of Transportation and Utilities. Mr. Speaker, Albertans can be rightly proud of the fine roads that we have. In recent weeks, we've seen recognition of the twinning of Highway 16, the Yellowhead, and Highway 1, the Trans-Canada. My question to the Minister, then, is when might we in the South expect to see the completion of Highway 2, the export highway?
Yeah, good.
No, do something for us.
Yeah,
right. Mr. Speaker, I'm not in a position to give a firm date on that, but the best position I can take at this point in time is that we will continue to upgrade the export highway from Calgary to Coutts on an annual basis, subject to dollars and I guess weather. The weather is good enough to keep it going on the same track. But that's really all I can give you right now. I know there are a number of projects in line for this year.
My supplementary, Mr. Speaker, is again to the Minister of Transportation and Utilities. The heavy volume of traffic on the untwinned four-lane section of Highway 2 from Okotoks to the junction of Highway 23 begs to have this section made into a divided highway. When can we expect completion of that much-needed reconstruction?
Well, Mr. Speaker, two things that need to be said. In the project to date, we've spent roughly $20 million, and this particular year there's $8 million in the budget for work on that particular road. We're aware of the volumes of traffic that are on that and looking at how we can work that out as part of the entire program. And as we move again from the last section down toward Fort Macleod and then look at what we have to do at the junction and go beyond that south of Lethbridge.
Edmonton Avonmore, followed by Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, battered women in Alberta continue to suffer because society, including this government, fails to provide real remedies. Last week, a violent husband followed his wife to a shelter, broke windows, and battered at the door. He was and subsequently received a suspended sentence. Yet a recent judgment of the Alberta Appeal Court held that imprisonment of a batterer is an instrument to deter other men, and more importantly, is an instrument to break the cycle of violence in that man's family. To the Attorney General, will he now commit to appealing this sentence, which meets none of the objectives of the Appeal Court?
Mr. Speaker, I'd be delighted to receive details on the case and find out what the disposition of it is happening. I can assure the honourable member that police, when they respond, arrest and proceed with actions, whether the accused or the other spouse wants the action to prevail. I agree with the honourable member. Wife battering or spousal assault is a very, very serious offence, and I can assure her and the people of Alberta, this government feels it that way, and all actions that are available will be taken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for that response. To the Minister of Family and Social Services, not only was this sentence inappropriate, but women and children do not have access to safe shelter. The satellite shelter in Fairview has been closed for the month of June because it ran out of funds. To the Minister, will he now commit to secure funding, not lottery funds, but secure funding so that this satellite shelter can open immediately?
Mr. Speaker, the Fairview satellite did experience some unusual demands on their particular shelter in terms of the latter part of last year. As a result of that, they ran out of funding and have had to close their facility for a period of almost 30 days. On the interim, Mr. Speaker, arrangements have been made at neighboring shelters to be able to accommodate the emergency situations in Fairview. On a more long-term basis, though, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to say that, as the member knows, we almost doubled the funding commitment that we've made as a government towards satellite shelters in this province, and that's a pretty significant commitment given the fiscal restraint that we're currently in, Mr. Speaker. It's a result of discussions that I've had with the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. It's a result of the discussions that I've had with the satellite operators themselves, and speaks very clearly, Mr. Speaker, of this government's commitment to be able to resolve these situations on a long-term and permanent basis, Mr. Speaker. I think the member would know that the Fairview shelter was delighted with the funding agreement that we've just for the coming year.
Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. The Minister has started the long-delayed review of the Calgary Airport Vicinity Protection Area regulations, which affect current and future residents in my constituency. However, decisions regarding the development of the areas in question are already being discussed today, as a matter of fact, by Calgary City Council. My question to the Minister is, will the Minister agree to proceed with the Airport Vicinity Protection Area review as a matter of urgency with a view to completing it within 6 months?
Mr. Chairman, we recognize the urgency of that matter, and I've instructed my staff this morning to attempt to set up a meeting within the next 21 days with the Mayor of the City of St. Albert, and that would certainly be one of the topics. Mayor of Calgary, I'm sorry, Honourable Member, the Mayor of Calgary, within the next 3 weeks, and that would be one of the topics of consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That question is, that answer is very positive, and I'm wondering if, in addition, the Minister would direct that the AVPA review place top priority on the regulations which address the NEFC relative to runway 28. Give that the priority.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. I've been away too long, obviously. I will give a commitment to the honourable member that I will discuss that this week with the chairman of the Alberta Planning Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Environment. Mr. Speaker, this past week the stream flows on the lower reaches of the Little Bow were at dangerously low levels. Southern Alberta, fortunately, has received a generous rainfall. It's been timely and has helped to alleviate the domestic and municipal water supply shortages. Can the Minister of Environment do anything to speed the process of this worthwhile study which has been undertaken to help provide the early construction of a water management structure which could have captured some of this runoff which we received this past weekend?
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member states, the recent rainstorm in southern Alberta went some distance to alleviate a very serious problem relative to river flows in southern Alberta. However, because of a very poor snowpack, this is only a temporary solution, and unless there's a sustained amount of rain, those rivers will be back to far below normal flows by the end of this month. The answer, of course, with respect to the Highwood-Little Bow situation is to achieve some storage of water and indeed capture the flush when it does occur, so towns like Carmangay can have an assured supply of water for municipal use. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what I can do to speed up the process. It's anticipated the environmental impact assessment for the enhanced diversion will be complete by this fall and should be ready for a Natural Resources Conservation Board hearing before the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you mentioned, and I'm happy to hear that the department is aware of the village of Carmangay's near shortfall of domestic and water supply for municipal purposes this week. But this is the second time it's happened this year, Mr. Minister, and I would ask that the department commit to the village and area residents some assurance that the long-term quality water supply will be made available to them until such time as a water management facility is built on the Little Bow.
Mr. Speaker, there is a hierarchy involved with respect to use of water, and the hierarchy is that water will be first used by people. In other words, it will be for municipal use, and then it goes on to agricultural use and recreational use and so on. So the assurance is yes, we will make sure that water is delivered to the people in the village of Carmangay and all other villages that are now being threatened by a general shortage of water in southern Alberta.
Point of order, Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raised a point of order to you, sir, with regard to the oral question period today under Beauchene 409 sub 12. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, sub 12 for reference is questions should not, in the oral question period, anticipate a debate for the day. And Mr. Speaker, my recollection was that the government House Leader on Friday last had advised at the close of business to the opposition that second readings of bills would be held today, including Bill 37. Mr. Speaker, if that were the case, then indeed I believe that would be anticipating debate. Mr. Speaker, I'm now reading from Hansard, page 1356 of Friday last, which appears to be somewhat inconsistent with that because there's no reference to the closure of the House on Friday last with regard to the government House Leader's reference to any bills. And yet very clearly in votes, Mr. Speaker, it points out very clearly the House Leader moved it to be 1 o'clock. I would, Mr. Speaker, want to pursue the blues of Friday last, and in the meantime, I would either request, Mr. Speaker, your consideration of holding the point of order, or failing that, then the government would withdraw it.
That Calgary Mountain View was the person that was involved. But it's fine.
Anticipation as it applies to asking questions about bills on the order paper during question period. It's my understanding that you, Mr. Speaker, have ruled in the past that if a bill has gone through the House in second reading and is up for debate, then questions are considered to be offside. But it's unreasonable, I submit, for the Deputy Government House Leader to assume that Bill 37 will come up for debate in second reading today. It's on the agenda, but we don't know how long, for example, debate on Bill 30 will take in second reading today. We don't know the order in which they will be called, and I submit if we allow the order of the rule of anticipation to apply to any bill that might be mentioned by the government as possibly coming up for second debate on a given given day, it would not only give the government unreasonable latitude in terms of deflecting what may or may not be dealt with in question period, it would put a straitjacket on the opposition members who are trying to get at what I think are very important, relevant public concerns.
The chair will deal with the matters tomorrow. Standing Order 40 request, Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. In asking the Assembly to pay tribute to the anniversary election of Louise McKenna and Roberta McAdams to the Alberta Legislature, it's worth noting that this month is the 75th anniversary, Mr. Speaker, which is something of, if we go on the patterns of 25, 50, 75, 100, and 200, that's one of the reasons under the working on the standing orders that I think that is urgent enough to be debated or the motion passed in the legislature. As a brief backup to the motion, Mr. Speaker,
Urgency. Urgency, then the request goes to the House. And then if you receive permission, then we'll deal with the issue. But it's strictly urgency, please.
Speaker, for reminding me the urgency I build upon is that June is the 75th anniversary, and I guess I could argue that it could be done any other day, but this day is as good as any. June, it's the middle of June, June the 15th, and rather than postpone it further, I would ask the House to consider making note of the event today. That's my argument for urgency.
Request for urgency under Standing Order 40. Those prepared to give unanimous consent, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Thank you. Westlock Sturgeon.
First of all, I want to assure honourable members that neither were Liberals. They were United Farmers and various other workers in the community. I don't know why the NDPs would want to claim paternity to the UFA, or I should say that the UFA are their paternal fathers. I think it would cause many a UFA to turn over in their grave, or if they are anywhere else. But there's an old saying, Mr. Speaker, that success has 1,000 fathers and failure is an orphan. So, of course, consequently, Mr. Speaker, I can see why the NDP would lay claim to it. I might mention that, speaking of brief biography, and something that I don't think applies too much in this House, that Louise McKinney come by her interest in politics by lifelong interest in the Women's Christian Temperance Union. I noticed that appalling silence now has fallen onto the NDP, but the Women's Christian Temperance Union is the means by which she took her interest in politics and her advocation of how to reform society. In the provincial election, June 1917, McKinney was elected to the legislature from Claresholm, still a dry area, if you may pardon the pun for the member for Little Bull. But and although she was defeated in the next election, she continued to work on improving social conditions throughout the province. She's probably best known, Mr. Speaker, for her involvement with the 5 Alberta women that took the case to Supreme Court to declared as people rather than as non-persons. McClung, Murphy, Parlby, Edwards, and McKinney, not an NDP in the crowd. There's a few Liberals there. Now we come to Roberta Adams. Second lady was first Mecca, and it's quite a tribute to Alberta. And a lot of people like to think of Alberta as being all right-wing and backwards, but there's a lot of initial political and social movements that first in Alberta. As a matter of fact, we had a Liberal government here from 1905 to 1921, before we retrograded after that. But McAdams first came in 1911, training in domestic science. In 1912, she worked at the Edmonton Public School Board. But most interesting about McAdams was she was elected in 1916 as a representative of the Army. Remember in the last war, the Alberta government created 3 positions, interestingly enough, at Army, Navy, and Air Force. Later on, after the war, the Army member became leader of the Liberals. The Air Force or Navy member became leader of the NDP, or CCF as it was called in this at that time. They do have a predilection for initials for some reason. And the third was a member joined the Social Credit. But not many people realize that this was a rehash of the system we put in 1916, where two members of the services could be elected, and it was most unusual for not only a woman to hit the House at that time, but to be a representative of the armed service, the medical corps indeed. I think it's fitting that we keep pay tribute to these pioneer women, and to that extent we're very pleased to see the portrait of Louise McKenney move back out of storage into, admittedly it's in a dimly lit east wing, but at least it's amongst left-wingers. The east wing has left-wingers, I think it is. And she would be liked if she could got up and move. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, she would like to walk out of there, but right now she is captive in the east wing. But nevertheless, I pay tribute to the fact he's there, and I wanted to take a moment to, as somebody with 7 daughters, I don't think I could have survived this month without paying tribute to the fact that the 2 leading women or the first women in Alberta to become, and Commonwealth, were elected in Alberta, which is indeed a tribute to all us Albertans to be proud of. Thank you.
Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this motion and do indeed pay honor to the memory of the first 2 women who sat in these hallowed halls. I know all Alberta women share in the feeling of pride at what these women accomplished, and that it is important in a democracy that all voices be heard in the places of decision-making and lawmaking. And because women bring a unique perspective to most discussions, their views broaden and enhance the discussion and help to make laws more responsive to the complexity of the issues before us. I would note that women have historically gathered to bring attention to issues of civil rights, the well-being of children and families, to concerns about protection of the environment and our planet for future generations, and to work for peace and disarmament. Women have put on the public agenda issues that have particular meaning for women: rape and sexual assault, wife battering, and child abuse, which, by the way, were the part of the motivation for the Women's Christian Temperance Union because of the drunken behavior of men, and also issues of reproductive choice and economic equity. But women also have great concern about the general economic well-being of society, as well as for education and health care. Women often bring to what can be discussions of abstract concepts and understanding of the impact of these policies on how we shall live their lives. But this perspective is far too absent from this place and most places. We have only 12 members that are women in this assembly, and we must therefore address the economic, social, and political barriers to women's participation, particularly economic and social barriers. So I would say we've come some distance in 75 years, but we have a long ways to go before we get anywhere to anything near equality. It's a struggle that continues, and I ask every member of this assembly to join in the struggle for women's equality, and to every Albertan to join us in that struggle. Thank you.
Deputy Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I too rise in support of the motion before us today, and the honourable member for Westlock Sturgeon may want to write this date down, because on behalf of the government, I'd like to express our thanks to the honourable member for giving us the opportunity in this instance to pay tribute to these 2 women who were the first in our legislature. There's no question that all of our society has benefited as a result of the leadership that was shown there, and the many ideas, concepts, and participation that society was lacking in some respects before these two women entered our Legislative Assembly. Today, I'm sure they would be pleased to look down on the Assembly and see us in this place speaking out for the issues that they fought for and extolling the virtues of having all of the citizens of the province involved in our decision-making process in the fullest way possible. And Mr. Speaker, with those words, on behalf of the government members in the Assembly, I would like to heartily endorse the motion before us and once again say that it is a historic day and it is appropriate that we recognize it as such.
Agreed. Sturgeon's summation.
You're on. It's all right, Mr. Speaker. I can just turn it up a couple notches in the gun. I would like to thank both sides of the House for support of the motion. It's particularly gratifying, particularly from representing a party that 28% of its membership is from the women's sector, higher than any other party in the House, and consequently it is something that we take special pride in, and I want to thank everybody for allowing us to get it onto the agenda, and thank the expressions of support. Thank you.
The motion before the House is this. Be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly recognize the 75th anniversary of Louise McKinney and Roberta McAdams as the first two women to be elected to any legislative body in the British Commonwealth. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Let the record show unanimously. Orders of the day. Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Minister, Career Development.